All right, good morning again, everybody. And this is take two of the Diamonds and Dogfights presentation, the mystery of the Kimberley Diamonds. And welcome to everyone who's just joined. If you're watching this later, we are doing this as a presentation, a live presentation, so there will be interactions with people in the chat. Please say hi, let me know who's here, give me a wave so I can greet you properly. So, yep, we're doing this again. We did it yesterday and it was a complete failure because I didn't have my media wasn't ready to go, and it's actually still loading now, so it's going to be a slight delay before we get started, but at least we know that it works. Hi Lynn, great to see you. Yes, and the PDF file that I need to add to the screen is actually now taking a really long time. I tried this yesterday, I tested it, Annette and I tested it together, and it all worked fine, but now it's actually taking a really long time. I'm actually going to, oh dear, what do I do? Maybe I'll remove one because there's two parts to it. It's taking a really long time to load. Anyway, how have you been, Lynn? Good to see you. And sorry I've been AWOL for the last few weeks, but as I explained yesterday, I'm feeling a little lost at the moment. Every time we go out and test signal, there's an issue. Every time we try somewhere new to go, there's an issue of some sort. And of course, I'm still slowed down by this ankle. I can't believe that this is happening again. This time it's just taking its long time to load up as the media file. This is doomed never to start, isn't it? This is actually, this is this what's going to happen to this presentation? It's just never going to happen. All right, okay. It's just sitting there. It looks like it's a quarter loaded, and we're just going to have to wait for it to fully load. So, yeah. All right. So, Lynn, you're at the end of your summer season. I guess the weather's starting to cool down for you where you are in Ontario. Um, I don't know. Did you have a really hot summer where you were? I think it's possible that you did. Life is busy for you. I'm always happy with whatever you're able to do. The important thing is to take care of yourself. Yeah, I'm trying to do that, and I have to do it. Come to terms with the knowledge that we all slow down, and there's a constant reminder of that every time you go visit your parents or see brothers and understand what they're dealing with. My brother is the permanent carer at the moment for his wife who's dealing with cancer, and Richard's brother is dealing with his own health issues, and we are constantly reminded that we are all growing older, aren't we? And we bless our good fortunes that we are actually pretty healthy, apart from a few knee issues and ankle issues and all the rest of it. Other than that, we're actually pretty healthy. Okay, so this file is halfway there. I've got my little circle. It's round to that point. This is take a lot longer than it should. So, yeah. So we've had a sudden change of weather here. It suddenly got a whole lot warmer. Yesterday it was 27 degrees, so that was pretty warm. And after I finished delivering this presentation, if it actually ever loads, we're headed up to a place called Carnot, which is in about 3 hours from here, 3 hours drive from here, in an area called the Liverpool Plains. It's the edge of the Liverpool Plains, which is our agricultural area, our food bowl. Fall weather is lovely. That's my favourite season, actually, is autumn. We had a top hat summer with a lot of bad air. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've been pretty lucky, actually. The last couple of seasons we haven't had too many bushfire incidents. Nothing like that big one we had 5 years ago. But of course we've had a lot of rain, which has meant that the bush has been allowed to grow. So there's a lot of fuel, I guess. If it does turn out to be a bad fire season, there's a lot of fuel. Air is clean here now. That's fantastic. All right, we're almost there. We're almost there. The file is almost fully loaded. So the way that this came about, I was looking for something different to deliver because the old videos, the retro videos, I don't think were really landing with people. A few minutes here and there as an add-on to whatever else I was doing is kind of nice, but to actually show a full 40 minutes of vintage video was a bit tedious, I think, and I think people felt that. So I moved away from that, although I was still editing our old video. At the moment I'm working on Leningrad, which is what it was known when we were there, and Moscow. So I'm going to see if I can logically break that up into little bite-sized pieces to share. So I'm working on that. And also there's still the old Hago recordings. I think I was still, where we got up to, I was still living in the Blue Mountains at the time. So there's still the possibility of returning to those as well. And it's just a case of time and memory, computer memory and data usage and all of that sort of stuff are the challenges that we face when I'm dealing with video editing. All right, come on. I can see it's like that far, that little gap there. It's almost there. Come on. I can see it's almost there. Full circle. We're about to do it. Come on, let me see it. Alrighty, I think we are just about ready to hit play on this. It's a PDF file, so it's slides that I'll be progressing through. So I went down to, I see you talk to computers. Yes, I always encourage them. I don't swear at them. It doesn't achieve anything. So I went down to my local library and I was looking at things that were sort of relevant to our local area, and I found this little book about stories. It was written by a journalist. He's a former journalist, and he was had just a little collection of stories, and this one actually just jumped out at me. So let's jump into it. I will load it up onto the screen because I'm hoping that it will actually successfully load up part 2 while we're delivering part 1. So I don't want to do anything that's going to make this even more difficult for my computer, but let's see if we can actually get this part 2 loaded up while we're delivering part 1. I hope I'm not asking too much of it. All right, so what we're here to talk about today is diamonds and the story of the Kimberley diamonds that were lost. So I do have notes, and I hope you'll forgive me. I'm not going to be referring to them constantly, but I will need to refer to them a lot. So basically, let's go. Diamonds. World War flying aces. Treasure hidden from the Nazis. This story has all the intrigue of a Bogart movie with a little bit of Indiana Jones chucked in. So we are looking at the story of the amazing story of the missing Kimberley diamonds. Except that it really happened. This is an actual true life story. Today I want to take you on a journey that spans half the globe. It begins on the battlefields in Poland during the First World War. And it takes us across Russia, Ukraine and Siberia, through the Far East, the subcontinent and the Middle East, to the Netherlands and Indonesia. And finally it ends here. That second file is finished loading. It's done. So I don't know what happened to the first file. Okay, so we're talking about vintage aircraft. We're talking about diamonds. We're talking about travel across the world. And finally we end here in Australia on the rugged and remote Australian coastline. So we take you through various periods of history. The periods that we'll be going through today, it will happen in World War I, period between the wars, and during World War II. And at the beginning, at the centre of it all, is this one man, Ivan Smirnov. He's a pilot, he's a survivor, and in many ways an unsung hero. And as you'll see, truth really can be stranger than fiction. So Ivan was born in 1895 in a place called Vladimir in Russia, which is about 80 kilometers to the northeast of Moscow, and he died in 1956 in Mallorca. And he came from a large family. I believe he was the youngest, so not very many opportunities for the youngest child in a large family. To understand Ivan, we have to go back to 1914, to the Great War. He enlisted as a volunteer in the 96th Omsk Infantry and Regiment. So we're going back. He started out in the infantry. And here is a picture that I came across of the actual 96th Omsk Infantry, and here they are actually going over their battle plans, preparing for a battle in Poland. The battle was in a town called Lodz, quite a famous battle. And at the Battle of Lodz in December 1914, Ivan's regiment of 90 men was reduced to a single survivor, obviously Ivan. A total of 300,000 men from both sides, Germany and Russia, their lives were lost during that battle. So this is where Lodz is located in Poland, and it was also a battleground in World War II. Poland copped it always during the wars. It was a constant battlefield. And here's an artistic impression of what the Battle of Lodz may have looked like, with men on horseback with swords and what have you. And this is an actual photograph from the Battle of Lodz of the German infantrymen engaging the Russians. That was taken in November 2014. So during the Battle of Lodz, he was the last man standing. And imagine that 90 men go in from one battalion and only one comes out. For many, this alone would be a desertion or retirement trigger, I would imagine. He was badly wounded in the leg by machine gun fire and spent 5 months in recovery. In that hospital ward, he made the connections that would send him skyward, quite literally. And so we come to the next stage in his career, which is in aviation. So he, quite literally, he joined the aviation. He transferred to the Imperial Russian Air Service, or what was more commonly known as the IRAS. I can see that there's a couple of other people who've joined. Say hi, let me know who's here. Give me a wave in the chat so I can actually greet you. It's always nice to know who's joined me. So now understand that aviation at the time was still in its infancy. There weren't sleek metal planes. They were fragile wooden canvas machines like the one you're seeing here. These were actually the planes that he flew during his time with the Imperial Russian Air Service. So different models, different planes. And they were fragile wooden canvas machines, open cockpits, unreliable engines, freezing wind tearing at your face. But Ivan thrived. He flew the Nieuport 10, which is that first image, the Morane Saulnier, the Nieuport 17, and eventually the Spad 7. And he didn't just fly them, he mastered them. He recorded 11 confirmed victories, becoming one of Russia's leading aces. By the time the revolution broke out in 1917, he had more flying hours than any other pilot in the Russian service. So next comes the next stage in his career, or the major part of his life, and that's when the October Revolution, the Russian Revolution, started. But history has a way of shifting, and in 1917 the Bolsheviks seized power in the October Revolution. For officers like Ivan, it was very much the same as, you know, it was the lower classes, it was the ordinary people that were rising against their superiors. So it was the peasants against the aristocracy, and in Ivan's case it was the enlisted men against the officers. So his life was literally at risk, in danger. So enlisted men were literally murdering their commanding officers. So Ivan and two fellow pilots did the only logical thing, and they made their escape. And so here's one of the images of Lenin during the October Revolution, and here's a propaganda poster from that time as well. So they commandeered a car and drove to the nearest city. They then slipped onto a train and headed east. And then you can see that we've outlined the journey on this map here. It was more than 10,000 kilometres. It was literally halfway around the world, from one side of Russia to the other, from Lutsk, in fact, to Vladivostok on the east coast of Russia. And that is basically that's the Trans-Siberian Railway. And one of the scenes that he may have encountered during that journey would be something like this, with people. This image was taken in 1917 at one of the stations along the Trans-Siberian Railway. Along the way, a scene like this, captured in 1917, may have been seen. They were racing literally ahead of the revolution itself, with danger always just a few days behind them. Their destination, Vladivostok on Russia's far eastern coast. Hi Sarah, g'day, welcome, lovely to see you. So we're here with pictures today. Sarah was here with me yesterday without pictures, just with the help of a couple of other voyagers who helped with emojis to help me move the story along. So that was fun. And I was very grateful to them for their energetic input. When they arrived, they pleaded with the embassies. They were turned away by the French and then by the Americans, but the British agreed to take them. What followed was a 9-month odyssey through Hong Kong, Shanghai, Saigon, Singapore. And this is the first part of their journey, from Vladivostok to Shanghai, Hong Kong, Saigon, and then Singapore. And from that time, or just a little bit later, in fact, here's a travel poster enticing people to travel to Hong Kong. After Singapore, they went from there to Rangoon, which has actually been skipped on this map. Rangoon is just I'm pointing at my screen. You can't see me pointing at the screen. But it would have taken a northward turn after Singapore, and then back south towards Colombo, onto Aden, and then up to Suez. Hi Patricia, lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us. So, that entire journey from Lutsk on the Trans-Siberian Railway, then on to Vladivostok, back around by land and predominantly sea, up to Suez, took them 9 months. Where are we? Sorry, I do need to refer to my notes. So in the Suez, they actually joined the British there and actually flew for a time with the British. And these were some of the aircraft that Ivan flew during that time in the Suez, before continuing on to Portsmouth. So yeah, 9 months by land and sea, just for the sake, just to stay alive, basically, to stay ahead and keep you, for your survival. So after the war, actually after he left to Suez, he continued on via Port Said and Alexandria in Egypt, and then on to Portsmouth. When the war ended, he became a flight instructor, and he was teaching actually other Russians how to fly in something like this, the Sopwith Camel. But the flying school closed down after a few months, so then he had to once again find new opportunities, and that's when he found himself with KLM, which is the Dutch national airline. So after the war, Ivan could have faded into obscurity, but instead he shaped the future of aviation. First a short spell instructing on the Sopwith Camel, then he joined KLM, the Royal Dutch Airline, and spent 25 years forging new routes across Europe. Okay, this is where I then now need to go to the second presentation because I had to split it in half. So this is the beginning of his career with KLM, and initially he was flying Fokkers, I believe, with KLM. One of them was nicknamed the Pelican. So he was actually instrumental in forging routes between the Netherlands and the Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia, which obviously it was a Dutch colony, and so there were a lot of Dutch people actually living there in Java. So his greatest triumph came in 1933 when he captained the Christmas flight to the Dutch East Indies, and this is the route that he forged back then. In those days it became known as the India Line, and that's spelled INDIELIJN, India, the Dutch way of saying India Line. So obviously it's not a non-stop route, but it is the longest connecting route in those times. And because of the number of people who were actually living in Dutch East Indies back then, there was a huge celebration that he'd actually connected Amsterdam to Java by air. Hi Ronnie Lynn, great to see you. Lovely to see you. Ronnie, I need to ask you, have you been receiving my messages? I've been trying to contact you about Annette's Monet tour that's happening next week. Let me know, because I've been trying to reach out to you via PayPal, I think. So yes, he was instrumental in forging that line. When he returned to Amsterdam after that magnificent achievement, he was welcomed back in Amsterdam by a huge crowd of people. Tens of thousands of people lined the airfield at Schiphol to cheer his return. The newspapers called him a hero. The India Line route he helped establish would become the world's longest air connection at the time. And it was celebrated, it's celebrated later, in fact. This is a jigsaw puzzle that commemorates that achievement, and this is in fact a stamp issue that commemorates that achievement as well. So it was a very, very important historical achievement that he accomplished for KLM back at the time. By now he'd taken Dutch citizenship, and he married a Danish actress by the name of Margot Linnet. And this is a movie poster from one of the movies that she was in. I could not find very much about Margot Linnet or her movie career at all, but I did come across this one poster. So that's a Danish film that she was in, and she was often compared with Mary Pickford. She had that similar look, wide eyes, blonde curls, and this is her in a scene from one of her movies. That's not Ivan, that's a fellow actor. So you can see that she has that Mary Pickford look about her. And here's a photo of the couple, Ivan and Margot, relaxing. They actually made home in Java. It made sense for them. They settled down in Java and made a life there. It must have seemed like he'd left war and hardship behind him, but as we know, history has a way of repeating. So World War II breaks out. Once again, Ivan takes to the skies. Sorry, I've jumped ahead a little there, but this is a travel poster for Java, and it's really just drawing attention to the fact that that's where they settled to and were living. So war breaks out for the second time. Ivan takes to the skies. He spent his time flying evacuation missions. So basically he was evacuating Dutch citizens to Australia, which was the closest allied nation. So he was able to take women and children and VIPs and evacuate them to Broome, which is the closest town. It's not, you couldn't call it a city. It's a small town on the northwest coast of Australia. That in itself, from Java to Broome is a journey of 2,000 kilometres, and that's illustrated here on this map. So you can see where Java is in relation to Broome. So on March 3rd, 1942, he is taking off in a Dakota DC-3. He's once again running an evacuation mission. His plane is loaded up with 3 crew and 8 passengers. Only 1 seat remains in the plane. 8 of the remaining seats have been taken out to lighten the weight of the plane. So it's this small Dakota is crammed full of people just sitting on a bare wooden floor. Just before the plane takes off, the airport manager comes on board and presents a package about the size of a cigar box to Ivan and said, please get this safely to Australia, to the Commonwealth Bank agent in Broome, for sending on to Sydney. He said, it's very valuable, please take care of it. So just ducking back here, the plane is crammed, a crew of 3, 8 passengers, including a young mother, Maria Van Toon. She's the one who occupied the only seat on board. And she also had with her 1-year-old son, Johannes. All but one of the seats had been removed to save weight. Everyone else sat on a wooden floor for the 8-hour flight. Just before takeoff, the airfield manager rushed aboard with a small package. Deliver this to the Commonwealth Bank in Broome, he said. The contents are valuable. Ivan had no idea what was inside the package. So here's an image of Japanese who on arrival in Java. So they were literally just hours ahead of the Japanese arriving in Java itself. They had already crossed the island and were progressively getting closer and closer. So this was the very last flight out of Java before the Japanese occupied that part of Indonesia. And what they were escaping, this is what life looked like for those who didn't manage to get out of Java at the time. So these are 3 images from Dutch internment camps in Indonesia with women and children in atrocious conditions. Photos I saw, not necessarily of these particular camps, but photos I saw at the end of the war with people in hospital that were just skin and bone, and reports I saw as well where they related the conditions that they were in were pretty horrible. So, what happened to the diamonds? Ivan had no idea what was in that package, except that it was valuable. They were uncut stones apparently, and they would have looked something like this. Okay, Sarah says, Ronnie, I thought I found you on Facebook, but there was no answer, so I cancelled the request. There were no names I recognised. Yeah, we know that Ronnie's been having terrible trouble trying to retrieve her Facebook account. So thinking of you, Ronnie, hoping you can get it all sorted out. I did mention to Poppy when she was having similar issues that there is a Reddit group, a subreddit just called Facebook, where lots of people are sharing their experiences for the same sort of thing. So maybe check that out. If you're on Reddit, just check out Facebook, and there's lots of people who are sharing their own experiences and comparing notes and what they're doing and their various successes or lack of. So I don't know, maybe give that a try, see how you go. Okay, so he placed the package in the first aid box. Hours later, as they approached the Australian coast, they saw smoke. Broome had just been attacked by the Japanese fighters, probably the very same ones that that were attacking Java and had continued on, who knows. Then 3 Zeros spotted them, and that's what the Japanese Zeros would have looked like. So gunfire ripped through the fuselage. Ivan was hit in the arm and the leg. Passengers screamed. Bullets tore through the cabin. With the engines failing, he aimed for the beach. And that's how the plane ended up on the beach on the northwest coast of Western Australia. One of the engines had caught a light. One of the landing gear had been hit, so landing on the beach was the safest thing that he could do. And as he landed, the plane skewed, which was fortunate because it meant that the engine that was on fire was now doused by the seawater. The plane ended up in shallow water, dousing the engine fire on impact. And then the Zeros came back around, strafing survivors as they tried to escape the wreck. And that's the coastline now where they landed. It is one of the most remote places in Australia. It's still to this day. So back then there was just literally nothing. They were 80 kilometres from Broome, and you know their predicament was pretty dire. So they'd landed at a place called Carnot Bay Beach, and that's spelled C-A-R-N-O-T. I'm not sure if that's spelled Carnot or Carnot, but I've been calling it Carnot. It's isolated, endless sand, scrub, 80 kilometres north of Broome, remote, harsh and inhospitable. At this point I was going to show you a video because there's a short film on Vimeo of one of the survivors who was interviewed not so long ago, and he actually related the tale of his time on board the plane, the crash and the subsequent days following the crash and their survival. But I wasn't able to successfully figure out how to share my screen, which was the other issue I was having yesterday. So I might, if you're interested, share the link to those two videos. They're about 4 minutes each in the Facebook group later. Okay, so in the days that followed, some died of their wounds. A crew member, Jupe Blau, and the young mother died within hours of landing. A passenger, Dan Hendricks, and baby Johannes died over the next 2 days. And there's another image of the wreck. So the survivors tried to distill seawater with a blowtorch with minimal success, as you can imagine. Smirnov dispatched 2 men in search of fresh water, but they returned empty-handed. He instructed one of the fitter passengers to return to the wreck and retrieve anything that could be carried. This included a small amount of food and drink, some parachutes which they used for shelter, and he instructed him to get the package as well. So it's unclear what became of the package at this point, whether it was just left behind or whether it was lost when a wave hit the man while returning to shore. But that was the last that anyone on board the Pelican saw of the package. Excuse me, sorry. Smirnov dispatched 2 parties of 2 to head out in search of help. So that point closest to the coast is where the wreck was. 50 kilometres to the northeast is a place called Beagle Bay Mission. A local Nyul man encountered one of the parties wandering exhausted, while the other managed to reach the Beagle Bay Mission, a mere 45 kilometres from the wreck site. So you can imagine in those conditions, hot, no water, just hot scrub, literally searing heat. They would have been lost and confused and exhausted within a day or 2 of setting out. So 2 small planes was dispatched from the mission over the survivor camp. They dropped some supplies with notes to say that a rescue party was on its way. So this is one of the notes that was dropped. I'm going to have to open my screen and have a look at that so I can read it. It says, "Relief party be with you tonight with food and medical supplies. Good luck," it says. I think it says McDonald, RAAF, which is the Royal Australian Air Force. And the second note says, "Good luck and blast the Japs." And it says, "Chap who dropped," and I don't know what that last word says. So those were 2 of the notes that were actually discovered and kept later that were with the food parcels. Okay, so 7 days it took. Finally, they were rescued, and they were taken to, first of all, to the mission by mule and cart, basically. So then it took hours to get this cart with mules, drawn by mules, to get to the rescue site, load them all up and take them back to the mission. From there they were taken to Broome, the 80 plus kilometre, a bit further from Beagle Bay Mission, onto Broome, and then from Broome they were sent on to Perth, where Ivan was visited in hospital by the police. And the police were in the company of a representative from the bank who questioned him intensely about the package's whereabouts. It was only then that he discovered what it contained. Why is that not working? So it was only then that he discovered what the package contained: diamonds. Diamonds worth up to 300,000 Australian pounds at that time in 1942, which is roughly $25 million in today's money. So it was later established that the diamonds belonged to a Jewish firm based in Amsterdam. It was logical for a company like that to get valuables out of the Netherlands in the middle of World War II. First of all, being Jewish, but second of all, the Nazis were plundering anything of value. We all know about the art that the Nazis were plundering. Diamonds would have been a sure thing. So they sent them on to Java for safekeeping, and then when the Japanese came, they wanted them out of Java, so that's why they were being sent on to Australia, who sent them on to Java to prevent plunder by the Nazis. So that's kind of where Ivan's involvement with the diamonds ends. Now we have a new character that comes into the picture, and here this is where our second character comes in, John, or better known as Jack Palmer. Jack was a pearler. He worked the luggers, and a lugger this is what the modern day works. This is a tourist vessel that's used in Broome, a photo of a tourist vessel, but it is designed on the original concept of a Broome pearl lugger. It was called that, something to do with the kind of sail that it used, and there were very specific designs. Luggers in Broome were different to luggers in the Torres Strait, for example. It was really dependent on the conditions that they had to work with. So the Broome luggers spent a lot of time laying on their side on the sand because of the long dramatic tides, whereas the Torres Strait luggers spent more time out at sea. So they were designed specific to the conditions they had to work with. And I might be repeating that some of that here, but it says Jack was a pearler. He worked the luggers off the Kimberley coast. These were beautiful wooden sailing vessels built to withstand Broome's extreme tides. He was also a beachcomber, always on the lookout for anything of value along the coast. What's my next slide? There he is. That's actually Jack Palmer there, a photo of him at work on his lugger. Okay, might have jumped ahead a little there. He'd heard about the crash of the Pelican, so he sailed to Carnot Bay to have a look for himself. Accounts vary. Some say he found the package poking out of the sand, others that it was located inside the wreckage. What is certain is that he opened it, and inside he discovered an absolute bounty in diamonds. He hid the largest stones in 2 aluminium salt tins. The remainder he wrapped in rags. And then, true to form, Jack bragged. He showed his mates and strutted about town, boasting about never needing to work again. Probably not the smartest tool in the shed, the sharpest tool in the shed. Soon diamonds started popping up in town. Perhaps realising how things were looking, he decided to hand in the larger stones to the police. And he insisted that this was everything he had found. He stuck to his story. He maintained that that's everything he had, and no one could prove otherwise. An investigation was launched Jack actually accompanied an investigation team to the wreck site. Nothing was found. So here we see a news article from the time where he spilled £20,000 at that time worth of diamonds out of the salt and pepper shakers across the police commander's desk. Here, look what I've found. So then a letter turned up as well. I think this was dated in May of that year from the customs. It was marked secret and confidential, and it was sent from Customs House to the manager of the Commonwealth Bank, asking them to confirm the value of the diamonds that had been sent. So in one particular shipment, this may not have been the ones that Jack handed in on that day. It might have been subsequent diamonds that had turned up later, because they did start appearing here and there, and they were being exchanged for ludicrous things. No one really, I don't think, had any idea of the true value of these diamonds. They were being exchanged for quantities of tobacco, even sexual favours. So, you know, these diamonds were turning up in all sorts of weird and wonderful places. Oh, why isn't that scrolling now? Then here's a picture of Jack on the far right in his grubby singlet there at the crash site with the investigation team. And here's another image of him. He's in the middle there with his singlet, once again, with the investigation team at the crash site. Okay, so Jack was charged with theft, but was found not guilty. The court couldn't prove he'd stolen anything. He stuck to his defence. I handed everything I found, mate. So basically, that was that. That was all they could do. He lived out his life in pretty nice comfort, and every now and again diamonds would pop up here and there. But Ivan continued to fly. He eventually retired to Mallorca in the Mediterranean, and he died in 1956, as we saw earlier. The beach where the Pelican crashed has been named Smirnov Beach, and here's the memorial to those who died, to those who were rescued, and to their rescuers. Patricia says, wow, seen a diamond ring jeweller's shop in Edinburgh, price tag $31,500. You bought a house for less. Yeah, I know. Crazy, the price of diamonds, right? And you know, there's that talk that the price of diamonds is artificially inflated, that they shouldn't be anywhere near the value that they are. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, $25 million. Thank you very much. Apparently, only 10%, roughly 10. I think I saw another figure that suggested 20% of the actual diamonds were ever recovered. So they're out there somewhere. Okay, so the simple memorial, there it is there with the cross and a propeller, one of the propeller blades across it. And that's actually still stands on Smirnov Beach today. Diamond Jack spent his remaining years in unusual comfort until his death in 1958, and every so often another diamond would mysteriously appear. Do I have any more slides after that? Oh yeah, there we go. So that's the wreck site today. So there's the remains of the plane there still on the beach. So there you have it, from the freezing battlefields of Europe through a daring escape across Asia to the skies above Java and the beaches of remote Western Australia. The story has everything. Adventure, survival, tragedy, a mystery, heroes and scoundrels. And at its heart, Ivan Smirnov, a man who never sought treasure, only doing his duty as a pilot. The diamonds were meant to be hidden from the Nazis. Instead, they vanished into the red sands of the Kimberley. And who knows, they may still be out there today. So, that's the story of the Kimberley diamonds. What did you think? Was it better with pictures? Those who were here yesterday? Sarah was here yesterday. Was it better with pictures? I think it's better with pictures, isn't it? And now I need to make a decision. Do I continue to do this style of presentation? You wouldn't believe the amount of work. Great with pictures. Yeah, I agree. You wouldn't believe the amount of work that went into this. I need to get better and more efficient if I'm going to do stuff like this again. I've managed to deliver weeks and weeks and weeks worth of preparation in 30 minutes. Oh no, it's 45 minutes. Sorry, 45 minutes, which is about right. Yeah. So it's a good story though, isn't it? Isn't that an amazing story? I mean, you could put that on the big screen in a movie, put Harrison Ford in the lead role, with a Russian accent, bit of Sean Connery maybe, and it would make an amazing movie, really, wouldn't it? I'm sure you could flesh out Jack Palmer's role a lot. You could tell the real story around him. It's a pity I couldn't find out more about Jack. I'm sure there must be tales from Jack somewhere out there, but I couldn't find them. Anyway, I'll see. Every now and again, I think I'll keep looking for something that might be translatable in a similar way, and see if I can't put it together a little bit more quickly and deliver it a little bit more efficiently. So thanks everyone for coming along today. It was brilliant. I had fun delivering it, and I know I'm reading a lot from notes, but my memory's shocking. If I didn't read from notes, I'd be done in about 5 minutes. So I need those notes. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Really enjoy the rest of your day. If you can join me tonight, what's I don't know what Richard's saying. Harrison is 80 plus. Oh, okay. Yeah, all right. You're making a point about who I'm going to use in my leading roles. You know what I mean. People along those lines. Harrison is 80 plus. Yeah, he is. He could probably, I don't know, be the aging. He'd be the old version, reminiscing perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, thanks everyone, and try and join me tonight if you can. I know that in the Americas it's not a good time, but keep an eye out for the replay. I'm doing the Sound and Light show at the Painted Silos mural in Corindai. All right, thanks again. Bye for now. Yeah, it was good. Thanks, Sarah.